to another live episode of Guy Live B2B Jam Session. Happy Monday morning, or for some of you all watching internationally, Tuesday morning, and welcome back to a lovely, lovely start of the week. Today I have an amazing special guest, but before I go into who my special guest is today, I want to wish everyone listening and tuning in love and harmony. Make sure to go get Big Black Tea Zen if you haven't. We have been selling out of tea every single day since we launched on October 1st, and we've been more than grateful for those of you who have been supporting us in this journey and making Big Black Tea a household name across the world. We really appreciate you. First and foremost, the tea was for our community, but we now see that it's reaching the world. So we are really, really grateful for that. In addition to that, I want to show love to some of the people who are already commenting. Shout out to Mr. Abel. Thank you so much for joining us today. Shout out to Mr. Gutam. What's up, Gutam? Nice to see you. And a potential random Facebook user who I probably know, but I can't read their name. What's up to you as well? Thank you so much for joining us today. If you are excited about today's episode, do me a favor really quick. Please share it with all of the people in your network, your LinkedIn network, your Facebook network, your Twitter network. Share this episode because today's episode is going to be fire because we're talking to someone who has introduced me through a friend of mine, one of our advisors actually, Mr. Lars Thinggarrd, who is the founder of Tech for Life. He's an entrepreneur with over 20 years of experiences in startups and venture capital. For the past 15 years, he's worked as president and CEO of Milestone Systems. Check him out if you haven't heard of him. And throughout his career, he's been driven by the desire to inspire and create. Similar to us here at Guide, inspire and create. He believes that has steered him in the direction of leadership positions in burgeoning companies and industries and has cultivated his passion around technology and why he believes it should be used for good. So we're going to be diving deep on his latest book today and asking him a little bit about what does Tech for Life mean? What's the book about? And fundamentally, what are his thoughts on the future of technology? And how is it going to affect our privacy? And what should we be mindful of as consumers, but also as creators, if we want to create a more ethical, tech-driven future? Super excited to be speaking with him. And without further ado, let's show him some love and bring him on the show. Now, I know you all always have questions when I'm talking to our amazing guests. So feel free to ask your questions throughout the duration of our podcast. With that said, Lars, what's up, man?
Hey, man. All great over here. All great over here. I'm in Copenhagen, Denmark. So this is autumn. We're hitting into wintertime, and it's getting dark soon.
Is it nice and sunny there in Denmark right now in winter, or is it cold as well?
No, it's in Fahrenheit. It would be 50 some Fahrenheit degrees.
Oh, wow.
A rainy day over here, but I don't mind too much. I mean, the summers are even more so beautiful here. So I live with the winters.
Dude, I love it. So, Lars, how long have you been living in Denmark? You know, when did your career take you to Denmark to start life?
So I'm actually born and raised. So on the contrary, I've been living in the U.S. I lived in the U.S. Many years back. I lived in New York for a couple of years. And then, of course, business travels over the years and vacationing had taken me to the US and the world. And for the past few months, very little travel, of course. But I've been in the US a lot, and with all the companies I have been building over the years, we have always had US as our more or less home market, with in excess of 50% of revenues coming out from the US. So I'm very familiar to the US.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing, man. So, having spent some time in the U.S. and spending your time in Denmark right now, you know, what would you say are the two biggest differences between the two places?
Oh man, well, when I speak with my friends in the U.S., I think that I know that you are coming out of the fires in the California vicinity, so that's great. I think the COVID-19 coronavirus is harder hitting you guys than it is over here, even though that we are picking up on our numbers here as well. And then I think that there is a certain I would say calmness over the situation here that many places in the US does not face. You have the US election topping it all up. So I think I'm not saying it's boring here relative to the US, but I'm saying it's very nice actually. And so that's why I'm living here, because I actually think it's the model works pretty nice over here.
Yeah. No, I always tell people one of my favorite places in the world is Copenhagen, and specifically.
Is that right?
Yes. The happiest people are in Copenhagen, literally, and that is true.
Yeah, that is true. So and there's a lot of discussion, and sometimes we kind of sounds like naive people, because we are so how happy can you be? But actually, when winding up everything, the model by the end of the day does work, and many of my friends in the US will call us the ultimate socialism. But hey, man, if this is how socialism looks like, I'm okay.
100%. So I'm excited to dive deep with you today, Lars, because you're even doing some really amazing things this year. Although so many businesses have shut down, and a lot of people went to sleep this year, you've been working, and you recently just launched your latest book, Tech for Life. First of all, I want us to go back a little bit. What inspired the book, and why did you decide to release it now?
Okay, sure. So let me make it kind of an in-flight as to the thoughts about the book that came out here over the summer. This is something that has been going on the way for some time. Actually, there is an old book that was inspiring me to dive into discussing responsible use of technology in much more detail, and that's a book from 1968, and I got one in my hand here. And it's a Swedish Nobel Prize winner called Hannes Alfvén that wrote this book. It's a dystopia from 1968. It's called The Great Computer. And in this book, Hannes Alfvén argues about it's kind of the rise of the robots back in 1968, and it's kind of also a dystopian story about basically what would be the English term for this. He is trying to prove that there is something called the big equation on complexity in society, and the complexity being that over time societies will develop to be so complex that you need computer power to solve the issues. And as this scales over time, you get more and more dependent on computers, and at some point computers will overtake what would be the decision power and so on. And then, i.e., is there something called explainable AI today? Yes, there is. Does that mean that there is something called unexplainable AI? Yes, there is. And that means sometimes actually computers to this day, already today in 2020, about 52 years later after this book was written, computers are able to do suggestions using algorithms that sometimes humans does not understand. And I think that's a very, very unhealthy way to go. And you can just think loud what kind of examples. It's not that I don't like technology. I love technology. Yeah. I like technology for good use. But if you just take the example here of algorithm, that come up with suggestion that is unexplainable to humans, which is the case in many cases actually with AI, and you go with that suggestion from the computer, you can get into situations that are very, very bad. And you can say, should you start a war? Should you do this? Should you do that? Of course, that would be human judgment by the end of it. But if you rely on your algorithms in your AI to be more solid than yourself, wow, then I think we have an issue. So this book, and I actually found a copy, and I can just tell from popular demand here that I found my first copy of this book many years ago, and then I wanted to buy a second copy some years ago, actually a year ago. And I paid back then. You can buy used books at Amazon as you can many other places. And I think I bought the first one for 10 or 15 bucks back then. Last time I was looking for this book, the price asked was $1,200. Wow! And to me, so this is a very, very heavy asset. I want to disguise my private address because I'm just kidding. This was $1,200 asking price for this book. What it tells me is that there's a lot of interest in what's talked about in books like this. Yeah. And I'm not. This is not my in-flight to the books that I was writing and released this year in itself, because I was not I was not doing this for the monetary side of it, but I was inspired by this book, and over the past few years, also have been behind as a sponsor in my job, and also as an active member in something called the Tech Festival in Copenhagen, and it's something that has been starting up in 2017. And in 2017, we were kind of getting a festival together in Copenhagen with the purpose of discussing technology and humanity, and what's in between. And people were kind of getting into very passionate discussions about pros and cons, and computers will save the humanity and computers will kill humanity. You can actually argue both ways, right? And part of the design in the first year's Tech Festival was to go in a think tank. We gathered together 150 specific chosen people. These were artists and architects and designers and some technology people as well, but a very broad group of people, 150 people from all over the world, from I think 24, 25 countries. And we sat them together to come up 48 hours work, come up with a manifesto. And we built a manifesto actually that ended up after 48 hours. It's a one-pager, and it's called the Copenhagen Letter.
Wow.
And if you go to the copenhagenletter.org, you will see the content. Basically, it states, I can just say a couple of sentences from this, but to everyone who forms technology today, don't design for addiction, abuse, and so on. And by the end of the Copenhagen Letter, we state, and leave the garden a little bit greener than you found it.
Wow.
These kind of concepts, right? So with this Copenhagen Letter, we were building on momentum on the Tech Festival. We had about, I think, 16,000 people participating first year in Copenhagen from all of these countries. We had about 20,000 people coming the year after. And so we are trying to build a momentum and a movement around the dichotomy of humans and technology and what's in between, and how do we balance this best possible. And then in fueling more to this discussion, I was sitting down thinking about, with the Copenhagen Letter at hand, with the great computer at hand, with a lot of, this was when the movie The Great Hack was just coming out at Netflix. Later on, The Social Dilemma came out and so on. And how do you actually then come up with a solution in this horrible world in many ways, but we want to use technology for good and live responsible with it. What should we do? And what one of the questions that has been inspiring me, and that is not only with writing this book, it has been in my businesses and still does, is a question around what are you optimizing for? And we see a lot of answers to something like this, right? So depending on who you ask, right? So if I ask Tim, what are you optimizing for? You might come up with A, B, or C. I'm not sure what you would say, but I have some guesses. But people come up with a variety of what am I optimizing for? If you paraphrase this and say, okay, in the context of responsible use of technology, what are we optimizing for? We see a lot of trends going on in the world right now. And if I just take it in macro trends, I would say that there is the Silicon Valley way, where we have, let me just state, and don't kill me, all you guys from the US, in saying so. But I'm saying I would just claim that in Silicon Valley, you are optimizing for profits. Let's just say. Other parts of the world, let's go to China, for example, and say, what is China optimizing for? They are optimizing for social control. Sometimes people would argue for deception as well. And then there's something in the middle, where I reside. This is Europe. What are we optimizing for over here? And basically, what we state is that we're optimizing for life. We're optimizing for the longevity of life and for balance between technology and humans, and not for profit, not for social control, but for something in between. So, given that, we are talking in the book, and I'm saying we because I actually have a co-author that is by far more visible out there than I am in many respects, because he is the chairman of Siemens, amongst others, and he is the chairman of the Maersk Group and others, and he used to be the CEO of SAP. He's called Jim Hagemann Snabe. He happens to be Danish as well, but a very international guy. And maybe most importantly in this context, he is also on the trustee board of the World Economic Forum.
Wow.
So Jim was actually bringing an abstract of our book. This is the final product. He was bringing a beta version, real agile fashion and whatnot, minimum viable product. He was bringing this to World Economic Forum in Davos in January, and sat down with the top 100 CEOs of the world and got feedback that we kind of have interwoven into this book. And amongst the people that read the book, we also have Mark Benioff from Salesforce. He gives a very nice quote in the book. So Mark is stating here that Tech for Life gives us a vision for the future of technology leadership based on the storied careers of two of tech's best leaders and their deep commitment to improve the state of the world. And we also have Klaus Schwab, who is the founder of World Economic Forum, and other people that have been that we have been receiving blurbs from. So
heavy hitters have already endorsed it.
Yeah. So I think that we are trying to build momentum in fueling more to the movement of the humanity technology, discussing what's in between and how do we balance this. And some of the questions, actually, it's a book with a lot of questions and also some answers, but there are much more questions than answers. And if you just put a few of the major topics, data, trust, and responsibility, which is part of the book conceptually, on data, how do we use data without losing privacy? It's a huge issue today. It's a huge issue that we need to solve. Otherwise, I think, it's going to be a very bad situation where we are ending up, and this is where kind of the social media dilemma is so obvious that when our data is treated like the currency that is used to monetize in a business model, I don't like the idea. Still, I am a user of Facebook, but I would have to say that in the 2017 Tech Festival, we had a lot of discussions about how many of you guys actually do use Facebook as an example, and some of us did, some of us did not. And when we made the computation of saying what would be the price that we should pay as a user of Facebook or a social media of the like, if Facebook were to be hold harmless on the profits and we could keep our own data. And I think that eventually it was less than $100 a year. And then I'm totally aware that they will use a lot of users if they were to charge and so on and so on. But I have not seen any social media, at least not for private purpose or private use, that has come up with a model, and I think there should be one at some point, where you and I own our own data. We pay for it, that's fine, and I'm ready to do so. But data, how do we use data without losing privacy? It's a huge question out there. On trust, a lot of discussion that we had in the book about this is how do we use artificial intelligence without losing trust and control.
Wow.
And this is to what I just said before, explainable and unexplainable AI. Even that we as humans had the obligation to come up with something that is called unexplainable AI. I mean, it's scary. I think it's scary. And it doesn't mean I don't believe in AI. AI can do a lot of great stuff, but when you get to the, to the crossover point where you as human does not understand the conclusion of the computer, but you might make their, you might go by the recommendation because you believe maybe that they are smarter than you are. Hey, I do believe it's a huge issue. And then responsibility on the last one on the book, we discussed how do we use platforms without creating monopolies. And that's also a big thing. And it's not that you can claim that there is any social media platform that is out there that constitutes a monopoly. But I think that certainly they seemingly are too big to form the way that, or to be organized the way they organize today. And with the placing power of someone like a Facebook and similar, they go and buy everything that is, in proximity of being a competitor. They have the placing power to go out and buy them out, and they do. And I think that we as humans should not accept that. And the best part would be that we just sign out of all of this and just say, okay, let's go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So if you know of any, maybe someone will use the chat and talk about it. If you know of any, I think that I would be really happy to start supporting and maybe build one myself on a social media platform, and it's really uphill, but it starts somewhere else. It starts actually with us being aware, and Netflix. Thank you to Netflix for having the Social Dilemma movie and so on, the great hack, and these kind of movies in moving forward in understanding what are we up against, kind of.
Yeah. It's so funny you mentioned that, Lars, because even recently was reading an article in one of the tech magazines that I browse through online, and there's now social media platforms that are coming out that are challenging kind of the experience and the design style that Facebook kind of was successful around, and they're trying to make sure that the content is more interest-based, that moderation is much more of a priority. So we're kind of seeing right now there's a huge conversation in the U.S. and I think internationally about the role that media giants play in our lives. For you've kind of shared where you fall on that side of the argument. Do you believe consumers should ask for more from platforms such as a Facebook and other platforms that are similar?
I think they should, and I think they are. I think we are. I mean, even to the extent where Facebook seemingly, finds themselves forced to set up a board kind of on ethics, which many companies has, and they have as well. But I think that actually stems from, it starts from somewhere else, actually legal. So there is the Communications Decency Act, which is a big thing in the US. There is the Communications Decency Act. Section 230 in the US is legislation that was passed by Bill Clinton back in 1996. It's something we also discussed in the book. It's an issue because what is stated in this section 230 on the legal side is that the provider of a platform is not liable for the content, and this is kind of contrary to paper. So if you run a newspaper, you're kind of liable what's put there. But the thinking back then was that the internet is new and exciting, and we need them to give them ample room to go out and communicate all they have. And back then it was also kind of the great new thing where everyone was excited and say, okay, now it's equal right to information, was kind of the support that this section was giving in the Communication Decency Act. The problem is that today people can actually not be held liable for the communication that is placed on these media, and that's it's a huge thing. And I think if in trying to answer your question best possible, probably what should be stated is that yes, we should ask them to think about the kind of issues that we're discussing here with the responsible use, that we don't want to be traded with our data as a monetization of in a business model.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately, I don't know. At some point, I'll just guess aloud that Facebook at some point will come up with a solution that is a paid-for thing that then could leave our data in our own hands if they are smart to do that. Otherwise, I believe someone else will do it. And I think maybe if you look to something like LinkedIn to me, and I know that you actually work there, so maybe
I love what you do.
Yeah. So maybe you're the right guy to ask him in this one. So how do you see a place like LinkedIn that is, and I use it, LinkedIn is only for business, and I use it for business only. Sometimes people kind of interpret LinkedIn as a social media platform similar to Facebook, so they post their children's birthdays and whatnot, and that's not the purpose in my belief. It's a paid for service, and we kind of in fair control of our own data. I know not in total, but we don't have the advertising. There's a lot of stuff. How do you recognize LinkedIn as a social media platform?
Yeah, I think you're starting to see a work-life cross with LinkedIn, and everyone's kind of personal needs to have like a social media platform that feels that is professional, but also at the same time still allows them to be their authentic self. And I think that's just because the cultural norm is now encouraging people to show their authentic selves online. But also, I think it's also because that Facebook is now known for a certain niche, which is family, friends, almost like Facebook is almost like that album. Okay, Lars left y'all, but hey, we're still gonna go in. Facebook is almost like that scrapbook album that your parents bring out when you're coming to Thanksgiving or it's Christmas, and they want to show all of their friends, your memories or their memories of you growing up as a kid. It's no longer that place where people, post fresh content, or even where marketers really try to find an audience unless they're putting ads behind their reach. So to Lars' point, I've seen that Facebook has really changed in a big way to not really addressing a lot of the needs that the next generation of content creators are looking for, but also even that existing people who are on the platform are looking for, which is allowing people to be their full authentic self, whether at work or, personally. So, to Lars' point, I definitely see a world where, you'll have to see what Facebook does to kind of embrace privacy and at the same time make it easy for people to be their authentic self. Lars, welcome back.
I don't know what happened, but somebody does not like what we're talking about here.
Right. They're trying to shut you down, man. They're trying to shut you down. But what I was saying, as you left for a bit, was that I agree with you that LinkedIn is primarily a B2B platform, but they're also kind of solving a gap that other social media platforms aren't solving for, which is allowing people to be their professional self and their personal self in a sense. And I think I think we're starting to see an unbundling of even platforms like LinkedIn as well as Facebook, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next 5 to 7 years.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. So so I think some of these discussions are discussions that are that are very obvious that humans need to stand up and address. How we do it, I have no clue. I have some questions as I mentioned here in the book, and actually, if I should just paraphrase the content of the book, it is our aim, Jim and myself, to go out and make a positive contribution to society. That is one design criteria for the future of technology. Technology must enhance the lives of its users. Technology is to create opportunities for all. We should respect and enhance human rights, and we should be human-centric at all times. And this is kind of the building blocks in a compass that we build into the book that is stemming out of the Copenhagen Letter back from 2017, and in the way that we have been thinking our way forward.
Yeah, that's powerful. Lars, I want to ask you, for you, what are your thoughts on the future of work, given the demands that consumers are asking for the technology and how COVID-19 has shifted us to remote work?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I think I echo what many other people will say, that we show that the world is still working to some extent. And it does this based on a lot of the technology that is used as we speak right here, right? We could sit, in the same studio as well, but this is working fine too. And we knew this already, before the COVID-19 situation. We knew that this was, but we were not using it enough, I believe. So there's a lot of open eyes going in the direction of reduction of business travel and so on and so on. And I believe that also in the way that we are working together, I totally believe that this has changed and had an impact forever. And probably it is something that has speeded up that process by 10, 20 years maybe, or something like that, in the way that we feel and sense the proximity even so close. And then top it up with other technologies, the VR and whatnot. I mean, coming soon. And that will then kind of pivot into the next kind of experience in the way that we see one another. And this is not something new, right? So this is, we have been doing Skype for 20 plus years and similar to that.
Yeah.
Right. But we have not used it as intensive as we have done these months. And it's not that we don't have Zoom fatigue, and we are fed up with Zoom meetings and whatnot kind of platforms. I'm actually more, even I should not say so. I mean, I'm more fed up by the number of platforms I have to work with. But that calls to my own, promise that we don't want to form two heavy monopolies either, right? So I think that's perfectly fine. But basically, I think that we are working in a speedier process. We are working efficiently in by force in the way that we operate today, and I think it works well.
That's such a powerful point. For you, I would love for you to ask you, what are the tools, the future of work tools in your productivity stack, right, that help you stay productive? That's often a question I ask my guests.
Sure. Yeah, but I'm an old-fashioned guy in many aspects here, Tim. So I have my to-do list kind of, and it's of course it's digital and so on, but it's not that I'm using any magic. I don't have a wand of magic business processing tools and so on. So I do use my lists, my priority lists, and then go from there. And the way that I work, I'm working on board level on several startups and scale-ups, and with them I'm seeing these are the kind of next gen people, from the late 20s to the late 30s, and actually one thing that was interesting was to see the reaction from these guys to a situation with COVID, where in a variety of businesses, it has been sometimes it was helpful to the business, sometimes it was painful to the business. But if you pair that up with the kind of seniority of the leadership team, I can see a lot, and it's not necessarily based on how old you are. It's also the kind of work age that you have. So some of them go panic because they never saw a crisis before, and say, hey, everything is falling apart, and the business was strong enough that it did not. And others is saying, okay, this is a great opportunity. We go to double down on investment and run away from competitors because we have the leadership, mindship, and we will run like crazy. So people respond from a leadership and a kind of work opportunity in a way that is very different and based on again not how old they are actually, but more on the mindset.
Man, that's amazing. That's a mindset, and I often say it's a mindset when it comes to kind of taking control of your career and really kind of creating the structures that help you be successful. And what we're seeing now with work is that a lot of workers are not creating their own routines, but a lot of organizations are encouraging workers to work from home due to COVID-19.
Right. And in your experience, Tim, what is this working? I guess, I mean, you set up your business here recently, right? So this is how old is it?
Oh, so we've been building Guy for a year and a half now, and given COVID-19, we actually had to pivot the business. So I've been working from home and living this lifestyle for quite some time. So when it happened, it was just really natural for us and our team because we've been working like this already for so long.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. It's the next normal, as they all say now.
It is, but I think it's not all for the bad. I certainly do look forward to seeing the vaccine coming out and giving us the flexibility to some travel and not to have this kind of, I can say, control on us at this point in time. I mean, schools are open in my country. Schools are open, but there are lots of other stuff that is not. So of course it is a pain. I think from a work point of view, I think that people are adjusting to the new normal and in a way that is functional and they are doing what they have to do in order to push the business forward.
100%. Lars, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. Lars, what would be your powerful takeaway for our community that's listening and they want to use technology to take control of their life? They don't want to be controlled by technology. How would you encourage them to, have more control and access over the tools that they use?
So if I should have give a kind of takeaway on my part, it would be to go to Amazon and buy the book and read it. go and look for Tech for Life, and there needs to be a lot of momentum behind a movement in order for it to happen. And it's a big obligation on everyone that we go out and push the way forward in the way that we think this should be technology for good and not technology for the other side. So responsible use of technology, and I think that all of us in technology, by heart, this is what we want to see. But there are some parts of the world, some companies that is getting too abusive, too monopolistic in the way they think, that is harvesting from the data that they derive. It is the new goal, and it's something that is our goals, and we don't just want it to be a possibility for companies building monopolies, forcing the guts out of us, and it's not the way humanity is meant.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Thank you so much, Lars, for sharing that and for blessing our community with such wisdom on what the future of work and the future of technology is going to look like. And I love the way that you kind of broke down that, countries like Denmark and places like Copenhagen, you all are focusing on how do you use technology to drive longevity of life. And I think that's fascinating because that is the healthy in-between that we need to focus on as a technology industry. And I think that's where technology is going. So it's really exciting that you shared that. And if you have not checked out Tech for Life, please check out Tech for Life. Lars and his co-author have written an amazing book that I think is going to change the world. So we need to get into as many hands as possible. Lars, I would love to have you on the show when you release your next book. What do you think?
I count me in, man.
Thanks so much, Lars, man.
All right.
Talk to you soon, my friend.
Thanks for having me. All right. Cheers, Tim.
Bye, Lars. That was the amazing Lars Thinggarrd, who is the author of Tech for Life, along with his co-founder. Thank you so much for checking and joining this episode. If you enjoyed this episode and you have questions, you have thoughts, put them in the comments. If you think there's someone in your network, specifically maybe your boss or a coworker or someone that's building technology for the future of life, make sure that they check out this episode. Share it on YouTube, share it on LinkedIn. It's completely available. And then more importantly, make sure to go get your big black tea. We get daily orders of this, and we've been so excited to see the movement, not only around God, but just around our tea brand as well, which is really, really exciting. And for those of you who don't know, tea is $1 billion industry. People love the tea, and we're so grateful that in times of hardship and craziness, we were able to launch such a successful tea brand. So make sure you get out and check out Big Black Tea, which is bigblacktea.com. Bigblacktea.com. That's where you can get either Zen or Harmony. And we already have gotten requests for different uncaffeinated herbal lines, as well as a completely tea line of accessories. So we are taking all of that feedback in, and we appreciate all of you who are supporting us in our movement. Thanks, Team Guide. Really, really appreciate you. All right. That was the episode for today. Let me know your thoughts. If you have all kinds of ideas on what our next episode should be, don't be afraid to reach out to me at utfow.com. If you want to be a guest or you know someone that will be a great guest, as always, our platform is your platform, and let us be a platform for you. All right, y'all, headed out. Today's going to be a really, really awesome day. Taban, my co-founder, is in town. We're going to go take pictures for a photo shoot because we're working on a redesign for our website. We all know how website design projects are. But hey, if you want to show us some love and you're in Oakland, let me know. If you're doing something exciting today, let me know. Enjoy yourself, have fun, live your best life, and have a great Monday. And don't forget, because I can't forget either, make sure if you are in the U.S. to go out and vote. It is important that we all show up in this election cycle and vote and make sure that we enact our right. It's an important election cycle that's going to not only affect the U.S., but the state of our world. So make sure you go out and vote in your local area, whether it be Oakland or if you are in Springfield, Illinois, go out and vote. All right, wherever you're at, go out and vote. All right, y'all. As always, peace, love, and abundance. Bye, y'all. Bye.